Well, girls, do you know what time it is?
It's time to recap episode number 7.
Yeah.
That's right. It's recap time. Welcome to the Tar Pit. Well, here we are at episode 7 of season 35 of The Amazing Race. And it starts out in India. And they are flying from India to Frankfurt. And they are on a flight that people often refer to as an equalizer, meaning that everyone's on the same flight and they're starting at the same time. So they're not all landing at different times. It kind of puts them back on equal footing. So even though there was a front runner of the last leg of the race, they're on equal footing again. And they are flying into Frankfurt and they have to get a car from the Frankfurt airport and they have to drive to a ferry.
On the way to the ferry, some teams started snapping at each other, like Robin and Chelsea. So Chelsea said, I'm just trying to get you to not snap at me. And then Robin said she's just trying to get the directions from Chelsea.
Yeah, that we will talk about that in a minute, how some of the teams were starting to fall apart this leg. It seemed like they're halfway probably through the race or the season, and some of the teams are really starting to get a little stressed out, snippy with each other, and that starts to appear on this episode. So they are taking the ferry to the Rhine River, to a castle in the Rhine River. But what we don't realize at first is that there are 2 ferries, and there are 2 different ferries, and they have to find a specific one.
Only 4 teams got on the right ferry at first.
Yes, so they are, one, you have to find directions, of course, get your directions to the ferry and make it to the right one. Andrea and Melina and Robin and Chelsea got on the wrong ferry. So not only were they not one of the first teams on the right ferry for the first trip to the castle, they also got on the wrong ferry and then had to come back and go and find the right ferry. So that really started putting those 2 teams behind.
But at least Robin and Chelsea realized it before they got to the first challenge. But Andrea and Melina, they didn't realize it, which put them way behind.
Right. What we find as the episode goes on and they show some of the other teams doing the roadblock that they're going to at the castle, Andrea and Melina not only go on the wrong ferry, but they're supposed to, all the teams, when they get on the right ferry, they give the person, the attendant on the ferry, €5. And that person gives them these old ancient coins called wittens, and they're supposed to take that to the roadblock.
Andrea and Melina got on the wrong ferry. Well, first they got lost, then they got on the wrong ferry. So when they tried to trade in their €5 for the witten, they got €5 in coin. And then they went to the roadblock and tried to use that, which wasn't the right currency.
Right. So there was definitely a mix-up. And of course, the language barrier, I'm sure, doesn't help because you have somebody who's German, who's doing their best to speak English with these Americans. And so Andrea and Melina, and they don't know that they're looking for these ancient coins. They think they just give a €5 bill to the attendant. And the attendant's like, yeah, I can make change. Oh, sure. And then he gives them €5 in coins. And they think they're set. So they get off the ferry, the wrong one, of course, and then they find their way from that landing point to the actual roadblock. But once they get there, as this is all as time goes on, they realize that they don't have the right coins for the challenge. So they have to turn around and go back. So not only is getting on the wrong ferry holding them back, but they went from the wrong ferry landing spot and went to the roadblock and then realized they had to turn all the way around, get back on the wrong ferry and go back to the right starting point to get on the right ferry. And Robin and Chelsea, at least, they were able to figure out that they were on the wrong ferry while on the wrong ferry. So they turned around immediately. So that saved them a little bit more time than Andrea and Melina. The teams make it to the ferry to go to the Burg Rheinstein Castle, and that is on the Rhine River. And they are supposed to exchange, like we said, €5 for some coins called wittens. And they take that with them to the roadblock at the castle. One of the things that we see too is that when they are driving from the airport to the ferry, that Corey and Rob is driving and Corey's in the back seat navigating. And Rob, of course, is deaf. And so you can't necessarily, obviously, shout directions from the back of the back seat. So he's signing to him in the rearview mirror. But he's also got some kind of neat secondhand directions that this little system they've come up with in a way of communicating directions when Rob is driving. And so he kind of passes him a piece of paper with the directions, and they have their own little shorthand language going where he can kind of navigate him when he's driving. I thought that was a really cool system that they have going on. As we mentioned, Andrea and Melina get on the wrong ferry, and they are behind, and so is Robin and Chelsea because they got on the wrong ferry too. But Andrea and Melina get more behind because they keep going through the race not knowing they're on the wrong ferry, whereas Robin and Chelsea course corrected quickly. So they get on the ferry and they go to the castle, the teams do, at the roadblock. And it's a math challenge. And they have this legend that's at the castle, and it tells them all these equivalencies. They have to pay this robber baron what they call groshens, and the wittens they have translate in these different ways to what will be groshens. So it's kind of a math challenge, and a lot of it has to do with proportions. So it's kind of a simple math challenge, but they write it in a way that's confusing. And so they have to figure out what the equivalent of five groschen is.
Chelsea, she did the roadblock, and she just like took some coins up and then just each time added one until she got it right, which wasn't very quick. Like, she thought that it would be quicker to just take one more each time until she got it, but it would probably be quicker just to figure it out.
Right. So instead of doing the math and trying to figure out what the wittens would translate to in groshens, she would just go up multiple times, and she would just race back and forth and do 1, 2, 3, thinking that eventually she'll land on the right answer.
Which eventually she did.
She did, but I still think it would have been faster just to figure out the math.
The math problem wasn't that hard. All you had to do was like figure out the proportions, and it was pretty easy.
Yeah, it wasn't too hard. In fact, Corey aced through it very quickly. So did Morgan, and John was there. He got it pretty quickly. At first, he had a little bit of a what we'd call a brain fart, but I think after Corey said, no, you have the right amount, he was like, oh yeah, okay. He kind of reset himself and got it done pretty quickly. So once they figure out how many wittens would translate into 5 groschen, which is 15 wittens of these coins, they give it to the robber baron, and he lets them in through this gate, and they get another clue.
And after they get the clue, they have to rappel down this side of the wall. And like, Melina didn't do it because she's afraid of heights. Like, I remember that from the first time that we saw the first episode of the race. She said that she was afraid of heights.
That's probably why she didn't do this one then.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. So once they were done with the translating the groschen into wittens, they gave it to the robber baron. The robber baron then let them through this gate, and they got the clue. And to get back down, instead of going down the big hill, they had to rappel down the side of the castle to the parking lot where their cars were. So they do that. And like you had mentioned, Morgan did a pretty good job of scaling down, and they kind of got bumped up a little bit there. They flew through that challenge, that roadblock, pretty quickly. Like many of your families, we love to travel. And in addition to our love of the amazing race, we love going to Disney World. With over 30 trips of experience under our belt, we are excited to announce that supporters of the podcast will have access to our special Disney World planning tip worksheets starting in mid-December. We've done all the homework, so you don't have to. Go to buymeacoffee.com/thetarpit to support the podcast and start your planning. We're back, and we were just talking about the roadblock and scaling down the side of the castle to get back to the cars. And from there, the teams are driving to Cologne.
On the way to Cologne, it was a self-drive car. Like, you had to drive it yourself, and everyone was getting so lost, and everyone was getting mad at each other. Lena couldn't know her left from her right. It was a whole thing.
Yeah, it was quite an episode, a little segment there. So this is the moment where we see all of the teams starting to melt down and just feel the stress and the weight of the race.
But Morgan made them switch. Morgan said, okay, Lena, get out, get in the back, and I'm going to drive.
Yeah, they did switch drivers because they were bickering quite a bit. And so finally they just ended up switching. Morgan ended up driving, and Lena became the navigator. But even all the teams, Steve and Anna Lee really had some tension bubble up, and they were really bickering with each other.
Yeah.
Robin and Chelsea, as you mentioned, did. There was quite a few teams that were melting down in this moment, and it just feels like maybe this is that middle point of the whole race. We don't know how the other episodes will pan out or the other legs, but I'm going to assume that since we're in episode 7, that this is probably the middle of the race or close to the middle, and maybe everyone's just hitting a wall because they're exhausted, they're tired, and they're frustrated, and they feel the pressure now to try to get to the final 3.
Yeah.
So they get to Cologne, and they have to park their car. And they go into this building where there is an indoor carnival, and it is set up where they find these tricycles, these huge tricycles with horses as on the front, I guess, these plaster or plastic horses that are on the front of the tricycle, and they have to drive that through this indoor carnival route.
So, like, when they got there and, like, the teams were getting there, Greg was riding on the bike and he crashed into a pole.
So that let Robin and Chelsea go into first place.
Yeah, because Greg and John and Robin and Chelsea arrived at the parking garage right at the same time.
Because Robin and Chelsea followed Greg and John.
And they got there at the same time. And Greg and John were just a hair ahead of them. But once they all got on their tricycles, Greg and John bumped into this pillar, and that held them back. And Chelsea and Robin were able to scooch in front of them.
When Rob and Corey were going through, Rob was getting really into throwing the flowers into the crowd. He's kissing every flower, then throwing it to someone, and it was so funny.
Yeah, some of the teams really had a lot of fun with it once they got there. Annalie and Steve, they were kind of tense at first, but then they kind of let loose. And Annalie, I think, in one of the interviews said that it was kind of a chance for her to reset and not get as frustrated or as snippy with her dad as she was, which I think is kind of a nice way of this lighthearted roadblock or this challenge to reset the teams. And Morgan and Lena, I think, maybe had a chance to reset a little bit too. They seemed less snippy that last half of the episode after that.
Back to Rob and Corey, like when Corey got the clue, he held it up in the air and was like, yeah! And then everybody started cheering.
It was a funny challenge. The teams were falling apart. They had those large horse tricycles to go through. They got their challenge. And they got the next clue, which took them to a bridge in Cologne. And the bridge...
the bridge was super long, and it was like they had a fence on one side, and everyone put little locks on it.
And they're kind of like the locks that you'd see like in middle or high school that people just have for their lockers or something, or at the gym.
It had like this little red and yellow sticker on this black lock. And you had to figure out the combination, which was 4711.
Right. So the combination for the locks, for all of them, they all looked the same, which was nice because once one team found one, if you could see what it was like, then you knew what yours would look like too. And they all had the Amazing Race flag on them. But the combo came from the oldest cologne made in Cologne. And it was 4711, I believe. Yeah. That was the combo. So, but they had to ask people, of course, for the name of that cologne. And they found out it was the combo for the lock.
There were thousands and thousands of locks on this bridge. Like, there was no space in between. You could not see through the fence at all. The locks were so close together, and you had to find one lock in the middle of it across the whole bridge. And if you were like one of the later teams to get there, you had to run farther down the bridge to find one.
And I think most people probably found a lock fairly quickly. I think Joel, though, had a hard time. For Joel and Garrett, he did the challenge. And he seemed like he took a little bit longer than some of the other teams. And I think he had mentioned that in his interview, too, that he had a hard time with what he called needle in a haystack challenges, where you're finding one small thing in the sea of similar things. So in this case, it's one kind of lock in a whole bridge side, and it was a very long bridge of lock. So he seemed to struggle with those challenges more, and he pointed out the tile in a previous challenge that he had to find too.
You know how Robin and Chelsea like never give out any clues or anything, and they just never talk during challenges, right? She finally speaks to Greg, and she points back to show Ashley where the locks are, and she just finally helps, which they never have done in the past episodes.
Yeah, they haven't really helped out. And I don't know if I'd say they'd helped, but they definitely
contributed.
rude, right? So if another team came, I think Ashley did, for the challenge at the time that Robin was leaving, then she kind of said it, they're back there, or go in that direction. She didn't explicitly say where things were.
She just pointed.
She said, go that way.
Yeah, she said go that way, like really quietly, and pointed.
Right. So not super helpful, but not rude, like they had been a couple times ago.
Her face when she got it and while she was running.
Yeah, they panned in on her face and it looked so intense. It was hilarious. One of the nice things, though, that I would like to point out when they were on the bridge, Ashley and Todd happened to be there at the same time that Rob and Corey were there. And in order to get the combo for the lock, you have to ask a local, and they're all German, of course, in Cologne. So there's a language barrier to ask somebody to look up on their phone what the name of this cologne is, or for that person to be able to understand you and relay the answer back to you. And
she just wrote it down on his paper because she had a pen.
Yeah, that was super nice.
Is there a sign language for all languages?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I know there's American and British, but
I have to assume there is then, right? If there's an American sign language, I'd assume there's a sign language version for all the languages then.
We can look it up later.
They get the locks, and then they go to give the lock to this one guy who's standing there at the beginning of the bridge. And they give him the lock, and he gives them the next clue. And the next clue takes them to a detour. So they have to choose between Just for Kick or Matter of Taste.
Just for Kicks was darts, but with soccer balls. And like when you kick them, they stick on to the little pad, whatever you want to call it.
dartboard.
Dartboard, yes. Well, the space on the dartboard. And like they stuck there, but you had to kick it high. And you had to get 66 exactly.
So it was set up like a dartboard, and you're given these soccer balls that have Velcro on them. So when you kick them, they stick to this big blow-up dartboard. And you had to get 66 points exactly, like you said. You couldn't go over and you couldn't go under for you to move on.
Rob and Corey did this one, and the first time I think they got 65, but then the second time they got 67. Like, at least that's what they showed. So they were 1 point under and 1 point over, and like they finally got 66 exactly.
You have to really do your math because there's like not every number on each space. Like it doesn't go in order.
Yeah, you definitely have to have some aim and be intentional on where you're hitting so the math adds up. But they weren't the only ones who did that challenge.
Well, Todd and Ashley did it, but then they switched because it was too hard for them. Todd said he did not think of his wife. He only thought that he was doing it.
They chose this, and Ashley, like you had said, was saying that she did not want to do that. She wanted to do the mustard, the matter of taste challenge. But they did it. They ended up doing the kicks, but they left, though, because they realized how hard it was. And you do have to line up your kicks so the math works out.
And right when they got to the mustard challenge, they're like, we love mustard. And they blew through it super easily.
So the other challenge, like we were talking about, was called Matter of Taste. And the Matter of Taste challenge, Emma, how would you describe that?
You had to taste a bunch of mustard, and then at the example, you taste it, and then it shows you the name, but the name is in German, and you have to match the name to the mustard, and then you go over to the test station, and you have to try the mustard, match up the names, and then if you get some wrong, you have to go back, but they don't tell you which ones you got wrong.
Right, and also there were 9 of them, just so we all have this sort of concept of how hard that may have been. So I imagine that there was some similarity with the mustard, so that probably was hard to figure out which was which first time or two that you do it. But there were 9 of them, and they all had German names. So not only are you trying to figure out the taste and match up the taste, but you're trying to match up this German name that you may never heard of.
Steve and Anna Lee, this one mustard, they were struggling to say the name, and it was so funny.
Pretty much everybody did the mustard one, the Matter of Taste. Like we said, Rob and Corey, they ended up successfully completing the Just for Kicks challenge.
Success.
Yep. And then Todd and Ashley started it, but they changed detours because they realized that they were going to have a hard time with it. So they went to the mustard challenge. Other teams pretty much flew through it. I would say that probably John and Greg and Ashley and Todd were probably the fastest with the challenge in terms of how many tries they had.
The mustard one seems easier, but I don't know if I could do it because I do not like mustard.
Which one would you choose, Evie? The Just for Kicks or the Matter of Taste detour?
I would do Just for Kicks, mainly because I also don't like mustard, but also because it would probably taste the same after a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could get confusing. I probably would do the Matter of Taste because I do like mustard, but I think with 9 of them and with names that I would have a hard time pronouncing, it probably would get confusing after your first taste or two trying to figure out what they were.
Even if it took me 5 years to do that Just for Kicks one, I would do it.
Uh-oh, so you chance being eliminated over trying something new.
Well, it's not just trying something new. It's like I don't like mustard, and it would all taste the same after like a while.
Okay, all right. Well, that's your choice. So I think I would do Matter of Taste, though, and you would do Just for Kicks.
No, I would do Matter of Taste, I think. It would be faster.
Once you successfully did your quiz of the taste and the 9 mustards, and you told the person that was at the table what they were in the right order, then she gives you your sort of slip for passing the test, and then you take that to this little kiosk, and this person, they ask you what your favorite mustard was out of the 9, I guess. And then they give you a sausage and that mustard. And so they kind of get a little snack because I have to imagine they're hungry. And I think somebody even said that they hadn't eaten in hours. Maybe Joel and Garrett, I think, said that.
Joel and Garrett also said they're in last, but they weren't at that point. Like they said, well, we're going to get eliminated anyway. So just why don't we take our little snack break that we have?
Right. And so as they were saying that they were in last place, the magic of editing with the show was also showing that Andrea and Melina were just getting to the right roadblock with the Wittens because of all the mishaps that they had with the ferry in terms of finding the right one after they went on the wrong one, and then getting the right change and all that stuff. Those mishaps they had that just kept setting them back more time and more time. Garrett and Joel thought they were last as they were doing the Matter of Taste detour because they didn't see anybody else, and they had seen most of the people pass them. And they probably assumed that Andrea and Melina had also. They probably didn't imagine that they were way far behind. So they were taking their time, and they actually kind of had a little revelation where they decided that they were just going to have fun with it. They're like, you know what? We're already last. Let's just have fun with it and enjoy it while we're here before we have to go home. And then they got their stuff and they were told to go where the pit stop was. It was at a chocolate museum. Phil had a little teachable moment where he said that Germany is the largest exporter of chocolate candy. And so they had the pit stop at a nearby chocolate museum. Once they finished Just for Kicks or Matter of Taste, they had to go to the chocolate museum pit stop.
You know how there's always like somebody standing next to Phil to like greet them and say like what place they're in?
Yeah.
What was the story about the one guy that they had that rode on the bomb?
Yeah, so I think he called him Baron
of Lies.
Baron of Lies was his nickname, I guess. And so he was supposed to be this historical character who was called Baron of Lies. The person supposedly became a legend because they had at one point rode a cannonball, sat on a cannonball in one direction and hopped on a opposing cannonball coming from the opposite direction and rode it back and somehow survived. So obviously you can't do that. Somehow that legend was created and stuck, and that character is called the Baron of Lies.
I could do that.
And that's who joined Phil at the pit stop. So once they got to the pit stop, what were our standings, Evie?
Greg and John got first. They each got $4,000. Robin and Chelsea got second because they followed Greg and John pretty much the whole entire time. Todd and Ashley got third. Rob and Corey got fourth. Steve and Annalie got fifth. Morgan and Lena got sixth. Joel and Gary got seventh. And Melina and Andrea got eliminated. They were just getting to that carnival thing because like everybody left and there was only balloons left on the ground. And then Phil had to come and meet them and say that it was the end of their race.
Yeah, and like we said, they just had multiple missteps with the ferry situation, and it just bumping them further and further and further behind, to the point where the people at the indoor carnival left. They packed it up and left. And Phil had to meet them there and say, everyone's checked in, your leg is over.
They had the same luck as Liam and Jeremy last episode with the rickshaw.
They did, but this was more drastic even. I think this put them way further behind.
I feel like they could have controlled it if they knew where to, if they read the signs more carefully, I think, because they said they passed that ferry 3 times before they went on it.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where when you're sitting at home, you're like, oh, pay attention to detail. But I'm sure when it's another language, another country, and you're racing fast and you're trying to figure out directions, then you can miss stuff easily.
When one team got done with the Witten thing, when they got done with the Witten thing, one of the teammates said, okay, let's go. And then it edited into Melina saying, I do not know where we are. I don't know where we're going. And then it just went back to what it was doing. And it was so funny, that editing. The way that they edited that.
And unfortunately, we have no more out-of-towners.
No.
Yeah. And due to personal reasons, we weren't able to line up an exit interview for Melina and Andrea. We were trying to, and it just didn't work out. So we would like to replay, though, their interview that we had before the season just started, when we were all getting to know them. And they definitely provided some comic relief this season. I liked them a lot.
Yeah.
They had a good attitude about everything.
Bye, Philly Johns.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melina. I am from Philadelphia, and I work at the Internal Revenue Service, also known as the IRS. I'm a tax examiner technician for large business and international. To just sum it up, what we do is we process tax returns on behalf of taxpayers that's U.S. citizens that they earn income abroad, but they don't pay their Social Security and Medicare tax. And I have an 8-year-old son, Ronnie. Sorry.
My name is Andrea Simpson. I am also from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I am 44 years old. I work for a global property and casualty insurance company, been there for about 18 years. I am a super fan of The Amazing Race. I love to travel. I love to volunteer. And I have a twin sister.
Hi, I'm Evie. Why did you guys, what brought up the idea to go on The Amazing Race?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I've been a super fan of The Amazing Race. I've watched it since season 1. So I've always loved the actual show. I'm like a reality TV junkie. So all the reality TV shows you can think of, I'm watching them. And I love to travel. So I knew The Amazing Race was a competition show that traveled. So that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to go on the show, because I wanted to, explore other places and different cultures.
Same for me. Andrea, like she said, she's this super fan, and she kind of willed me in on the show. So I think I started watching from the first all the way up into the 7th season. And then I kind of took a break. And then when we decided to apply, I kind of picked back up. But we both love to travel. I love to travel. And we both are competitive people. Mm-hmm. So this was the best thing ever for us to go.
Right. Exactly. So when we were in college, we had first applied. And then, of course, we didn't hear anything. And then I think right after college, there was an open casting call that we both went to.
Yes.
And of course, we didn't hear from that as well. And then I guess, was it 15, 20 years later as adults, full grown adults, then we applied again. And then we actually heard a call back. So we're like, what?
It was surreal when we got the call.
Yeah, exactly. To say the least.
Super cool. This is Emma, and like you said, you've been watching for a while now. And what are some of the most memorable challenges from past seasons?
Ooh,
I got a lot of them. I know season 32, when was that Will and James, the running in heels. Remember when they had the race in the heels? They had the guys.
I remember that. I remember that.
I don't know what season it was, but the running in the hills, the beer yoga was super funny.
Oh, I remember the beer yoga. Yeah. Yes, it's jogging my memory
and
now.
remember when they were sliding up this like greasy blow up sliding board?
Yes.
Like I don't know where it was, but they had to try to slide up this greasy like blow up slide, and they just kept falling down.
Yes.
That was hilarious.
I think that was the season where the Globetrotters, I guess the two basketball players were
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like an older guy. It was an older guy that kept falling back.
Yes. And they were like, I can't do it. And I think they like took the penalty, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That was a good season. And another good memorable season the challenge was when, I forget their names, Uchenna had to shave her head off. That was that's what I was trying to get to. Yeah, that was a good season. That was one of the earlier seasons when they were just really like uncut and raw.
They were raw, yes.
Yeah.
Nice. So how has this experience changed you guys? So you went on you applied, right? You decided to be a team, you applied, and you entered and you were chosen as one of the teams. And now you've done this and you're back. How has it changed you? What's different about the world now to you?
Well, for me, I feel like first of all, this is like a total blessing because this is like a once in a lifetime experience. Like who gets to travel around the world, free of charge on somebody else's dime and just to experience the different cultures, the different people. Those are memories that you can keep keep with you for a lifetime and retell the stories to your friends and family and your children. So that was one of the main things that I know that changed for me. Like I was able to appreciate, these different people that I'm coming into. I've made new friends now that we've been on this race, these 13 teams of 2, that now we're just a huge family. And I just appreciate, life in general, because tomorrow isn't promised, but to be able to do something like this is like a memory that I will cherish forever.
Yes, I agree. I don't think it changed who I am, but my outlook, as far as like the places we visited, it was just amazing. Like I know I wouldn't have been able to travel to those places or meet the amazing cast. And now we have new friends. Just that whole bonding and, getting to travel with Andrea, building our relationship. It changed a lot of things. Like it's hard to put in words, but
yeah, I know what it changed for you, Milan. Now you're on social media. Now she's on social media.
That is true. I am like old school, and I was not on Instagram before I went on the race. So when I came off the race, they told me, "Oh, you're the only one that's not on the race." So I had to sign up. I mean, not on the race, not signed up with Instagram. So I had to sign up. So that did change me. I have Instagram. I have social followers or whatever they call it. And I'm learning a lot about social media, the good and the bad. But yeah, it was just an amazing experience. I will do it again in a heartbeat.
Nice.
I'm loving it. I can't wait. I can't wait to actually see what they actually edited and how they put it together. What other teams did, but what the challenges, how they completed the challenges. Because with the detours, you do one or the other. So I want to see how other people did on detours, or the other teams that wasn't with us when we did our roadblocks or whatever. I just want to see all of it come together and how it's put together.
Yeah,
I think we all are very excited about next week.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's Evie. Since you guys said that you made friends, do you think you made any lifelong friends?
Hi, Evie. That's a great question. I love your voice. You have such a soft, unique voice like myself. Mine is a little squeaky and I'm older, but I love your voice. Yes, we have made friends that I believe will be lifetime friends.
Absolutely.
Because we are in this special, elite group. We one big family now.
I agree. I totally. Even when we were on the race, like, production and the camera people were like, welcome to CBS. Now you're part of the family. And I'm like, what are y'all talking about?
Yes, that was like.
Now I get it. Like, this
Yeah.
is one big family. Like a lot, there's but a handful. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but there's a handful of people that actually can, come from a normal background, normal life, Joe Schmo off the street, and now you're thrown into TV. This is going to be shown on national television.
Right.
Like, who can actually say they've been on national TV in a competition
For years to come?
TV?
My son can watch this.
Right, exactly. Years to come, you can Google me, and that will come up.
Yeah.
Well, at least we made a mark in the world.
We made a mark, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You're there for the history now, for the annuals.
Exactly.
Yep, that's
and
cool.
a check off my bucket list.
There you go. So how has it been? So from my understanding, when we've talked to other teams, you're told that you're chosen, and now you're chosen. You're given a window of time of when you have to leave, but you can't tell anybody. What were some of the reasons or some of the excuses you gave to people of what you're doing or where you're going? How creative did you get with that?
Well, for me, for my job, like I had to took a leave of absence. So I told them like I literally said I'm on a competition show, but I didn't tell them, I didn't tell them The Amazing Race. I told them Survivor because I went to our producer at the time, Pedro. I was like, well, what should we tell them? And I think it was Jesse, his boss, was like, well, tell them Survivor because
Survivor,
we do produce or do Survivor, but it's not the actual race. So you're not lying because it is by CBS. So for the most part, I was telling folks, I'm going to be on a reality TV competition show. And that's where I would leave it at. Now, if they ask me, then I'll say Survivor. But not a lot of people ask me, and I'm good at keeping secrets. So I was just like, I'm on a reality TV show, and that's all I'm gonna tell you.
I mean, same here. We both had the same situation where we had to tell our employers that, we were going on a reality show, and I too had to take a leave of absence. But I had to tell my manager that I was going on Survivor. And a lot of people didn't really know we were going away except for our family.
Right.
A small group of friends, because we were on our way to Ghana.
Yeah.
Before we got the call that we were going on. So as soon as we got the call, less than 2 weeks?
I think it was 2 weeks, yeah, because we got the call April, and I remember it was April 22nd, because that was Ronnie's karate tournament. And
you got a good memory.
Yeah. It was like maybe 2.5 weeks later, we were traveling to Ghana on vacation. So we didn't have a lot of turnaround time to prepare.
Right. Or to tell people. So nobody really knew. They thought we were just going to Ghana, so they didn't really know about the show. So afterwards, people was probably freaked out now, oh my God, you was on the show?
Yeah.
This is Emma. What did you guys gain from this experience? What did you get out of it?
I would say, Emma, that I gained more confidence in myself and my ability to push myself to the limits, my fears. That was one of the reasons why, a part of us going on this show to kind of face our fears and, just to travel and to push yourself to the highest limits, because this is a competition, and then you are doing really challenging challenges. So I think for me, getting over my fear of bugs and, heights, I prepared swimming classes because I'm not a great swimmer. With the stick shift, I gained a lot of skills preparing for the race.
Yeah.
So with that, they kind of helped me along the way.
Yeah, I agree. I say I gain a lot of more patience with myself. Again, the fears, a lot of people the fears that we have, it's all mental.
It's all mental.
We put that on ourselves. So this pushed us out of our comfort zones, because you had to, you had a split second to decide who's going to do it, how you going to do it, and just do it. So it was now
we had a plan now, Emma.
Yeah.
Me and Andrea had a plan. We planned that she do all the heights and I do all the ground puzzle.
Yeah, and creative stuff.
Creative stuff. So that worked out well for us because, Andrea is not scared of heights. I am.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if the clue gave us, an inkling like, oh, this is going to be a height challenge, then I was like, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But definitely it pushed us to just be able to conquer or overcome whatever fears or challenges that we had within ourselves to just push through it. And I can say this was the most like challenging thing physically and mentally I've ever done. But then again, I would do it again.
Yeah, I know. I think the adrenaline, the excitement, all that, even though you're faced with your fears like straight up in your face.
Yeah,
you
head on.
Like, you still want to just get out there and do it. It's something about it. It's hard to explain, but it's definitely an adventure that, it is just I don't know how. It's just hard to put this experience into words. I know everybody can, but I'm just overwhelmed with so much that just transpired. And then about the air, like we just got off the race and now we're about to see ourselves in action. It's mind-boggling, but I would do it again. I would do it again in a heartbeat. And hopefully it will bring us back. I think we all need a do-over.
This is Evie. How did you guys come up with the team name?
Ooh.
Great question, Evie. You want to tell them, Andrea?
No, because I think it was you and somebody else that was.
Yes, well, we were coming up with names because we're from Philly.
Right.
We decided to come up with Philly Johns because the word John is now in a dictionary and is a noun. And Philly represents, not represents, but Philly always have this terminology of John. So I figured, we're from Philly, so why not be Philly Johns? And it just, I pitched it to Andrea. She's like, oh, yeah,
I'm like, that's perfect. That's exactly what it is. Like, that name embodies anybody from Philadelphia knows what a John is. You have to be from Philadelphia.
Yes. Those that wasn't on the race, we had to kind of educate them on what a John was. And once they figured it out and they understood what a John was, they was like, oh, that's a John. Oh, this is a John.
Cool, I didn't know that.
This is Emma. How can fans keep up with you now that you're getting more famous from this show? Do you guys have any social media or any projects that you're working on that you want people to know about?
That's
Absolutely. Yeah, they can follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Team Philly Johns, all one word, TeamPhillyJaWns. That's on Instagram. And then, of course, our own personal handles. Mine is Andrea_Nana. And then Melena's is Poetry Girl, GURL 45. So that's both our handles on Instagram. And then they can follow me on Facebook. That's, my full name, Andrea Simpson.
What's handles, Andrea? Is that a new term?
No, handles is like your handle, like your name on your social media. That's what they call your handle.
Like a username or something.
I don't know what a handle is, but okay.
So my handle is Andrea Simpson on Facebook. Melena's is Lena, Laina Hatcher. That's her last name on Facebook.
Nice.
I see why Andrea was the detailed one, right?
Cool. Well, thank you so much. And girls, we learned a new word. Johns, it's called?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And it's AW, right? It's JAW. I think I had heard.
JAWNS. Yes.
Okay.
Team Philly Johns.
Nice. All right. I like it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a good night, and we really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you,
Adam.
Thank you.
It's nice meeting you, Evie and Emma.
You too.
Yes.
You too.
We can't wait to watch you guys and cheer you on.
Can't wait.
Yes. Team Philly Jones.
Thank you.
Good night, guys. Have a good day.
Good night. You
good
too.
Night. Thanks. Bye. Well, it was really nice to meet Andrea and Melina, and now we know what a John is.
Yeah, I'm going to start using it at school. I'm going to try to bring it out to California. Thanks for joining us. Bye.